Hi everyone, and in today's video I'm going to show you how the Black Paper's Dangerous Deal quests work and why you should do them. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video for Phantasy Star Online Blueburst. So today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two of the episode 4 side story quests. This won't be part of the side story series though, because these quests are primarily used for a specific purpose. They're not really used for any lore reasons particularly. These quests are both in episode 4 in the one player mode, and they're called Black Paper's Dangerous Deal and Black Paper's Dangerous Deal 2. Now, the whole purpose of these quests basically is to get a load of really good items. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those quests today, show you some of the items that you can get from them and just how the quests work, and just give you an idea of why you might want to do them, particularly if you're just starting out with PSO BB, because they are quite easy to get access to some of the really good gear. So with that being said, let's start with Black Paper's Dangerous Deal 1. So the quests are found in episode 4 in the one player mode, and they are under the side story section. And this is them both here. So for the first one, it just says, anyone who has in their possession a high grade photon crystal can participate in this program. The reward you receive depends on your luck and skill. So the way this quest works is you're spawning on Pioneer, and there is a NPC here, this Raymar. Now this guy is only really interested in talking to you if you have the currency that Black Paper want. Black Paper, if you remember, are the organisation that Kirik and Sue both belong to. So what Black Paper are after in this quest is they are after photon crystals. Now photon crystals are a drop that drops for most IDs are able to get them. I think a lot of the episode 4 rare enemies drop them in the low difficulties, but also once you get into sort of very hard and ultimate, you'll tend to find that the lizards quite often drop them, or the yaois, depending on your section ID. They're not particularly hard items to get, and you will just come across them now and again. So every so often you will be jumping back into this quest to spend them. Just on that though, before we get started with this, there is another use for photon crystals as well, so don't just waste them all here, because you can also use them in Claire's Deal 5 to add percentages to enemy part weapons. I did cover that in my guide about how to convert enemy parts, so go and check that guide if you want to see that side of how to use photon crystals there. But otherwise, the main use you've got for photon crystals is to spend in this quest. They're essentially used as a currency. So in my inventory here, I have one photon crystal. If I talk to this NPC, actually, out of curiosity, what does he actually say if you don't have a photon crystal with you? So he says, are you a hunter who saw the request? I'm with Black Paper. Like it said, we're looking for photon crystals. If you can provide us with what we're looking for, we'll let you take part in a fun little experiment. What do you say? Want to give it a shot? I kind of wonder what he says if you say yes if you don't have one. Well, if there's no crystal for us, then there's no deal for you. If you get your hands on a crystal or change your mind, let me know. So you do need to have a crystal in your inventory for this. So now we've got one, we can talk to him again. Decide to give it a shot after all? Yes. So good, you've got a photon crystal. Alright, then follow me. I'll take you to the experiment site. Once we get there, you can't return to the city until you're done. Are you ready to go? So you just say yes. Come along then, and don't let any military types see you. So this takes you down to the crater. And you can see we've got a lot of areas with different laser fences. And we have a couple of NPCs here as well. So obviously one of them is Sue, and then we've got this Raymar, who for some reason is using a melee weapon. Maybe he's been attacking lizards. So we talk to Sue. And she says, take it, you decided to come. The deal is very simple. If you provide us with a photon crystal, we will provide you with a little thrill plus a reward. You get to choose the enemy type you'd like to fight against. Also, the reward varies based on the game mode you're currently in. What she means by this is the rewards depend on the difficulty that you do the quest. Of course, you only get a reward if you make it out of the combat area. Do you have any questions? So should I just ask a few things about the quest? So the first thing is thrills. If you want the reward, there's a little bit of danger involved. That's the thrill. If you can defeat the enemies created by the Photon Crystal, the reward will be yours. Oh, and you'll have to fight alone. That's basically saying that you have to do it in one player mode. So enemy types. There are 3 kinds of enemies that the crystals can create. There are terminals that you can access before you enter the combat area. They will show you which enemy you'll be fighting. Choose an enemy that matches your skill level. Game modes. You chose a game mode before starting your adventure today. This game mode affects how tough the enemies will be. The more difficult the fighting, the better the reward. So choose the highest difficulty you can handle without dying. And then we have combat areas. There are a few things you should know about the combat areas. First, you need to defeat all enemies before you can exit a combat area. So no Ryukas or telepipes, obviously. And when you're done, a teleporter will appear along with your reward. Make sure you pick up your reward. Oh, and if you happen to die here, you won't lose experience. That doesn't apply on Affinia. Affinia has removed the experience penalty, but if you played this back on the SEGA servers, you would lose experience when you died. So why Photon Crystals? Now this is actually really interesting from a lore perspective. So it's not something you need to know about, but here's the general idea. Photon crystals are a purer form of photons than photon drops. If processed correctly, they can form weapons or items. Have you picked up on what they're doing yet? But as a side effect, they can also produce enemies. The lab is trying to develop this technology so they can embed any material or life form into a single card. So what this quest is actually doing is this is providing the building blocks for PSO Episode 3 Card Revolution. So the cards that are created in Episode 3 Card Revolution are all made from, essentially from processed photon crystals. Sort of. There is more to it than that, as you'll know if you play through Episode 3, but that is the basis behind it. Who knows if that's even possible though. So yeah, no more questions. So what do you say? So you can think about it, we'll just let you run around and I guess ask her some more questions. You can go back to the city if you don't want to do it, or you can give her the crystal. Now the way this works basically is once you go into one of the areas, you'll have, I think it's 10 minutes to defeat all the enemies. You will get a guaranteed rare enemy, but none of the enemies drop anything. So it's just an opportunity to see a rare enemy. At the end of defeating them all, you'll get a couple of items based on the difficulty. So I believe you get, I could be wrong, but I think you get 1 item in normal, 2 in hard, 3 in very hard, and 4 in ultimate. And they can vary from things like Mazetta, things like soul atomizers or star atomizers, but there are a lot of rare items as well, which again is based on the difficulty. If you're not sure which items drop where, check on places like the Affinia Wiki, or even on places like PSO World, they will have a list of all the different items you can get per difficulty. Because it does depend on which enemy route you do as well, the drops do differ between routes. I should also state as well that this is a little bit different to Black Paper's Deal 2, which I'll go into after this. So we'll hand over the crystal. Great, I'll take 1 crystal then. Now just choose an enemy and good luck. Good luck to us too. So you can see we've got 3 routes, and if you access these terminals, so that is if you want to fight zoos, which are the big birds. And there are 2 more down here. So that is for Dorfons, which are the huge things that act a bit like Delbiters. And then finally over here, we have the 3rd route. Which is for Rappies, specifically Sand Rappies. So for this video, we'll do the Dorfon route. I'm doing this in very hard because there's a couple of katanas that I want. Typically what you'll find with these routes is the Rappy route will often give you things like shields. It'll quite often give you units, that kind of stuff. Maybe a few force weapons as well. The Dorfon route is mainly for katanas, from what I've seen. And the Zoo route is mainly for firearms. So we'll do this route. So we'll go enemy type Dorfon, permit Dorfon entry, yes. One of the following conditions must be met for the program to end. Either 10 minutes elapse or you are incapacitated. So it's basically saying if you don't kill them in 10 minutes once you warp through, you won't get the rewards. And if you die, you won't get the rewards. So once you warp through, you'll start to fight the enemies. And you can see we're more or less hemmed in. It's quite a small room. And we've got 10 minutes to beat all these Dorfons. Like I said, I'm doing this in very hard at the moment because there is a few items I wouldn't mind from very hard. It is worth noting that you can get some items in this that are very, very rare normally. So an example of that is you can actually get Yasha from this, which is an extremely rare katana. Now, the disadvantage with the weapons from this is that all of the weapons that you find in this quest will have 0%, and they'll never have any percents on them. Similarly, any defensive gear will always be a minimum stat as well. So yeah, just bear that in mind if you are doing this. Now, for Yasha, it really doesn't matter because realistically, you're going to get Yasha to make a Sangha in Yasha. And to do that, you can just go and hunt a Sangha with hit. So it really doesn't matter that you get Yasha with no percents because you're not going to be using the Yasha anywhere. So the Dorfon route is a little annoying. You do get knocked over pretty much constantly, but honestly, even in Ultimate though, these quests are not too hard. As long as you've got enough health to survive a Dorfon charge, you should be fine. So there's our Dorfon Eclair. It is kind of annoying that they give you a rare enemy that you can't actually get a rare drop from. So that's all the enemies dead. And you see we get a warp back and a couple of items. So I can see there's at least 2 red items, so we've got a couple of rares at least. So because I've got the show weapon thing on, you can actually see what these are. These would normally just show special weapons though. So we have a 1977 Agito, Solar Atomizer, which annoyingly is blocking me from picking the other rare up. And another 1977 Agito. So not good. So it is kind of RNG what you get. Just to note as well, you can get all rares. You don't get Solar Atomizer every time. You can get all rares. Similarly, you could potentially get a run where you get no rares. It is quite unusual to get that to happen though. So that's basically how Black Paper's Deal 1 works. Yeah, let's move over to Black Paper's Deal 2. Let's just talk to Sue though before we do. So she says, not bad taker, not bad at all. So is the reward to your liking? Not particularly. If you haven't picked it up, you should go back and get it now. Or if you're done, I'll have someone get you back to the city. What do you want to do? Let's go back to the city. Just to note, I don't think you can do several runs in the same quest. I think that once you've opened a fence, that is all you can do for that quest. I think you have to reload the quest again to do another run. I could be wrong on that though, but as far as I'm aware, you can only do 1 run per quest. Yeah, so he says, all right, that's it for the deal. It was good doing business with you. He does give you the option to go back as well. So if you forgot to pick the rares up for some reason, you can go back. So yeah, so that is Black Paper's Deal 1. So let's switch over to Black Paper's Deal 2, and I'll show you how that one works. It is very similar though. Okay, so we've made a new episode 4 game, and again in 1 player mode. So again, if you go to the counter and go to side story, we've got Black Paper's Dangerous Deal 2. And this one says, The Photon Crystal experiment is advancing to the next stage. Anyone who wants risky rewards, please contact. So again, with this one, when you load in, it looks pretty much the same. We've got that Raymar there again. Now again, this works very, very similar to the first quest in that you need a Photon Crystal to run it. But there are some small differences with this quest. So first of all, this one actually takes place in subterranean desert rather than the crater. Next, it has different rewards to Black Paper's Deal 1. And one of the other big differences with this is there's no option to choose a route. You just run through like a little gauntlet of enemies. Now, another difference with this is that the number of items you get is fixed for certain difficulties. So I believe that Very Hard and Ultimate share the same drops for this. So I think you can just get away with running Very Hard. So once you've got your Photon Crystal, again, talk to this guy. Like I said, we're now able to start the next step of the Photon Crystal experiment. If you can provide us with what we're looking for, we'll let you take part in a fun little experiment. Want to give it a shot? Yes. So yeah, so he takes you to the experiment site. Which again, very, very similar to what we've had before. Again, we have this Raymar and Sue. So with that, we'll talk to Sue again. Actually, we'll talk to this guy first. Please talk to Sue about the general idea. Okay. So we talk to Sue. She says, you came, taker. The deal is the same as last time. You provide us with a Photon Crystal, and we'll provide you with a little thrill plus a reward. Of course, you only get a reward if you make it out of the combat area. Do you have any questions? Out of curiosity, does she say anything different for the Photon Crystal's part now? No, so it's exactly the same, so you don't get any more. It's just like a really subtle hint about the, I guess, the lead up to episode 3. So you say no more questions and hand over the crystal. And basically with this, you just go in this room and fight through the enemies, basically. So unlike Black Paper's Deal 1, you do get different types of enemies. You can also see that the doors do lock behind you as well, so you are locked in here until you finish. So again, I'm doing this on Very Hard. And you can see at the top of the screen as well that we do have a 10-minute counter to beat this. You can see we have multiple Del Rappies. So if you really want to see a rare enemy, this is probably the easiest way to do it. Unfortunately though, like the previous quest, none of the enemies actually drop anything, so don't think you can use this to farm any rare enemy drops, because you can't. So just like with Black Paper's Deal 1, all we need to do now is just fight through these waves of enemies. So we now got a lot of Pyro Gorons. So it is a lot more variance in the enemies, unlike BPD 1 where you just fight one specific type of enemy. You really forget how annoying Gorons are until you go back and fight them again. I would say that BPD 2 is probably a little bit harder than the first one, so you may need to get a few more levels to be able to do it comfortably, but honestly, it's not too bad. Again, with BP2 as well, there is no real benefit to running it in ultimate that I can tell. I think you can get pretty much everything from this in very hard. And I think the rewards are the same as well. So you can see we now got a load of the rare Marissas. So you see there, even though we tagged that Del Rappy, we didn't get anything. It is kind of a shame seeing all the rare enemies and not having them actually drop anything, but I guess if you really want to see a rare enemy, that's a way of doing it. I do like with these quests though that they actually do tie it to the story somewhat. So you can see that Black Paper are working on things behind the scenes and are actually investigating how to make these cards from Photon Crystals. Which then does raise some questions about, does that mean that the lab are working with Black Paper to an extent? So it is worth noting that you do get experience from the enemies in this. Yeah, the Gerta Blulu is a little annoying, but once you get rid of the other enemies, it's really not too bad. So once you complete it, you just run through this door. And there's a couple of boxes on the floor. Now, I think with this quest, I think you only get 2 boxes maximum, I believe. Or is it more? So from this, we got a Guren and a Kusanagi. So I actually did need a Guren, so that's actually quite useful. And then once you go back here, this will take you back to the start, so you can go back to Pioneer. So it does work very, very similar to Black Paper's Deal 1. It's just that this one is a little bit more difficult and you do fight a wider variety of enemies. And there is a different drop pool for it as well. So just have a look on the things like the Affinia Wiki, and that will tell you what items are in each drop pool. So it might be that you don't need to do one of these quests, or it might be that you need to run one more than the other. So for example, if you want, for example, Centurion ability, I think Centurion ability can only drop in Black Paper's Deal 2. So just make sure you look at the wikis just so you know what drops were. So once you completed this, you can just talk to Sue. And she'll do more or less the same as she did in the first quest. And she just lets you go back to the city from here. I think the warp does just bring you back to this room as well. So we can return to the city. Again, you can only run it once per quest, just like the first Black Paper's Deal. So overall, particularly as a newer player, I would really recommend running the Black Paper's Deal quest when you do get Photon Crystals, because realistically, you're probably not going to be adding percentages to enemy power weapons until much later in the game, once you get things like a Bringer's Rifle, which you need to get to Ultimate Ruins for anyway. So, early in the game in particular, I would probably recommend running Black Paper's Deal, because it does let you get your hands on some quite rare weapons that would be very hard to get normally. So it's an easy way of getting access to Sango and Yasha. You can get both katanas from this, I believe. I would recommend personally using this method to get Yasha, and then go and hunt a Sango with hit. You can also use it to get both Guren and Shoren to make Jizai. I believe you can get one of Hangun, Gold, or Miller from this. I can't remember if you can get both, but yeah, I know you can get at least one of them to make Gold Miller. And there is a few other things you can get from this as well. Now, there is nothing like, there is no Seal J Sword, there is no Heaven Punisher, there is no Psycho Wand from this, but there is some really, really good gear. There's also some useful gear that you use for other trades, so you can get things like cat ears and bunny ears from this, which are used in the forge to make things like the cat plating for the red ring, which is an Affinity exclusive thing. So there is definitely a good reason to run this. Overall, I would really, really recommend it. As I say, Photon Crystals are not particularly hard to come by anywhere, so you will probably find that you'll run this quite often anywhere. It's also a really good way of just getting some useful units and things like that as well, so definitely worth doing. Yeah, hope that's been useful. If you've got any questions about Black Pepper's deal or Black Pepper's deal 2, just leave them in the comments below and I'll try and answer what I can. As usual, we do normally 2 videos a week, and we normally stream twice a week as well on both Twitch and YouTube. So feel free to follow me over on Twitch as well if you haven't already. We do have a Discord that you can join as well, where we do play games and discuss things off stream as well. So feel free to join that. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Yeah, hope it's been useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.